Hello YouTube, this is Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review for you today. Happy Christmas Eve and happy Christmas of course to those of you watching from the continent on Europe. A lot of people in Europe, if you don't know, they tend to celebrate their big Christmas day as Christmas Eve. So a lot of people will be celebrating Christmas Day right now over in Germany and Denmark and things like that. So for this reason I chose the Mikkeller Hoppy Lovin Christmas beer for you today. This should be quite interesting because it's a Christmas double IPA. Many craft breweries decide to do Scotch ales and heavier beers for their Christmas seasonals, but Mikkeller have gone for this double IPA approach, so this should be quite interesting. For this video as well, it was demanded by my good friend Carla that I give her a shout out on the Christmas Eve beer review. It's her favourite day of the year. I'm not sure why Christmas Eve more so than Christmas, but a big shout out to her anyway, my good friend. And also a shout out to the guys at Thistle News on Holborn Street in Aberdeen. This is where I bought this beer, as I buy many of my Mikkeller beers. They've got a good selection there. If you're watching from the Aberdeenshire area of Scotland, definitely go and check them out. They've got a good selection there. But as is usual with my beer reviews, I'll just take you through a little bit of a history of the brewery, but as I always say, if you are simply just interested in the tasting here, then feel free to go towards the second part of the video and you will catch that particular segment. Now, I've done a number of these video reviews before actually for Mikkeller, so you'll find the links to those in the video description, but for those of you who don't know, Mikkeller is a microbrewery or a gypsy brewery, and they were founded by home brewers Christian Klaurup Keller and Mikkel Borg Bjergso, and they're based primarily in Copenhagen over in Denmark. Now, Mikkel Bjergso has apparently travelled the world and brewed about 200 different types of beer, but his first exposure to foreign beer was a job that he had in a cafe while studying to become a teacher, and when he was qualified as a teacher he used to stop at a pub on his way home for a beer, and he tried the IPA from the Danish brewery Brockhouse, and there he decided that he would actually save a hell of a lot of money if he brewed his own beer. So this is really where the idea that made Mikkeller come to be. Now, Mikkel and Christian drew some inspiration from American brewing books, and they started brewing in their kitchens at home. They were largely inspired by the sort of renaissance that was going on over in the US with the big sort of craft boom that they had over there. But they presented some of their clone beers to their beer club, and they actually won in a blind tasting, and when this happened, this got them hooked on the idea of brewing their own beer. But their kitchen experiments lasted a whole 2.5 years before the pair began brewing on a larger scale at the Danish microbrewery Orbeck. Now, Mikkel's brother Jeppe opened a beer shop in Copenhagen in 2005, and he began to distribute these very early Mikkeller beers. Jeppe is actually involved now with Evil Twin Brewing over in the United States, a very good brewery. I have one of those that I need to review for you at the moment. But the big breakthrough for this company on the international beer world, it arose with the idea that they had of adding French press coffee to an oatmeal stout, and the result was the Beer Geek Breakfast, and this was voted as the #1 stout on the international beer forum ratebeer.com. You'll probably have heard of that, but this really kick-started Mikkeller's international recognition. Now, after attending the Danish Beer Festival in 2006, the brewery were courted by an American distribution company called Shelton Brothers. They import a number of European beers over to the States, and you can get a lot of information on these beers on their website as well. But they started this, they were taken over there in 2006, I believe it was, and Christian Keller, despite this success that was going on here, he parted ways with the company in 2007 because he didn't want to produce more than a handful of beers, whereas Mikkel was more intent on experimenting with different beers. But Christian went on to be the editor at the Danish music magazine Sound Venue. Those of you watching from Denmark will probably know that. I've never seen it, obviously being in Scotland. But the brewery, as I mentioned, with it being a gypsy brewery, they don't have their own brewery, so obviously you can't go to the place for tours and things like that. But they brew at a variety of host facilities in several different countries. This includes Denmark, Norway, Belgium, Scotland, and they also brew over in the US as well. But primarily their beers are brewed at the De Proef Brewery in Lochristi Heifte in Belgium. That's where they brew most of their things. But their home base as such is the Mikkeller bar in Copenhagen, and they have a second bar in Copenhagen called Mikkeller and Friends, and this is a cooperation bar with the Toul guys. The two guys who own Toul were students of Mikkel Bjergso's, and they very recently opened up a bar in San Francisco as well, which is the first location out with Denmark, and they also now have one in Bangkok in Thailand. But today, from starting off from these very small roots, Mikkeller export to over 40 different countries, and they've actually brewed well over 600 different varieties of beer, encompassing a massive array of flavours and ingredients. As I mentioned, a very, very experimental brewery. And it's said that the brewery, as I mentioned earlier, draw their inspiration from the American craft brewing industry, and the whole aim of the company basically is to make beer an alternative to champagne for drinking with gourmet foods and things like that. But the company also collaborates with other brewers such as Brewdog, Nunya, you 3 Floyds and Total, so you get some really good beers, and some of the collaboration beers are outstanding. I had the Mikkeller Brewdog I Hardcore You, and that was a really outstanding beer. But the brewery has a blog on the website as well where you can keep up to date with the current goings on at the brewery, and most recently they actually signed Keith Shore from Philadelphia as their art director to make these labels for you here. But have a little look at the brewery website, you'll find it in the video description there, and you can keep up to date with the various goings on at the Mikkeller brewery. And as I mentioned, Mikkel's brother Jeppe Jarnetbjergso is actually involved with Evil Twin Brewing, so go and check those guys out as well. But let's get on to the tasting of this beer itself. I'll just bring, as I usually do, I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one here. And this has got the standard Mikkeller artwork here. As you can see, the sort of standard, it's this unique artwork, and these guys feeding the reindeer basically. I think they're feeding them mistletoe, of course, but the reindeer seem to be quite enjoying that there. But it's a cool label here, and as you can see, Hoppy Lovin Christmas on the top here. And as is usual with this one, it's just a plain bottle cap. I think it's just difficult for Mikkeller to do that because they are a gypsy brewery as such. But this one is a 7.8% American Double or Imperial IPA, as it's sometimes referred to. But let's get this guy out and get on with the tasting. It's apparently brewed with ginger and pine needles, so this one should be quite interesting for you today. So let's get this guy out and get on with the tasting here. Hopefully this doesn't go crazy. Nice bit of smoke on the when I open this up there, but let's get this guy out and get on with it. Really nice yellow colour. I noticed when I brought this one out of the fridge, actually there was a good bit of number of particles floating around in here, so I expect there'll just be a little bit of sedimentation visible in this one, but it should be quite interesting. We'll see how that goes. As you can see, a really beautiful kind of bright goldeny amber colour here on this one, and it's really you can see a lot of the particles floating about there. I'm not sure how well you can see that. Let me just bring up the camera and see if you are catching that, of course. But you can see a lot of little particles floating around in there. I'm not sure how well that's coming up there on the camera, but there's a lot of little particles in here. As you can see, about a one-fingered head on this one. It's got a nice smell. I'm smelling it out of the bottle at the moment, but a lot of little particles in here, and it's a beautiful kind of golden colour, and you can see just a little bit of carbonation floating up to the top there. But it's a mainly foamy head, maybe just a little off-white actually, I'm not sure. It looks just have a little hint of beige in it, but it looks like a really nice beer, I have to say. And the particles in it actually has a really nice smell to it, this one, so let's get on with that. In terms of the aroma, a lot of sort of pine needles and grapefruit I'm picking up here. Good, I think maybe pineapple as well might be in there. A lot of tropical fruit, as I say. And there's a good hint of the pine resin there too. The ginger is very... The ginger's very sort of in the background, if you like. It's very sort of subsided. Or subdued rather, that's the word I'm looking for. But you can pick up some citrus in there, and there's a nice little bit of floral character, but it's mainly the tropical grapefruit and pineapple that you're picking up out of this one. But some nice pine resin in there too. Just that's mainly subdued. It is mainly the sort of tropical fruit character you're getting out of there. But yeah, there's just somewhat of a little hint of sort of toffee, caramel, brown sugary malts in here as well. But let's give this guy a taste. I'm looking forward to this one. It smells great. Very different mouthfeel to this one actually. 7.8%, so you are picking up just a little bit of the alcohol warmth there. You're getting that as soon as you take it in. But yeah, a really rich taste to this one. A lot of fruity hops, as you would expect. And the pine resins, they are pushing that right up to the forefront. Some nice lacing being left in the glass there, as you can tell. And that head is just starting to fade down just now. But yeah, this one has a really rich flavour to it. You're getting a lot of fruity hops, as you would expect. That pineapple and grapefruit flavours coming out quite a bit. There's actually a bit of a herbal character to the hops with this one, which wasn't so obvious in the aroma. But you're getting a nice caramel and toffee hint to this one after the hops kind of subside a little bit. And there's a nice little bit of ginger just mixed in there. Maybe just a little hint of toasted character as well. But this is a really nice one. Another really good beer from Mikkeller. And quite interesting as well to have a Christmas one that's a double IPA rather than, you know, like a Scotch ale or a dark beer or something like that. This is a really good one. If you get this beer, just sip it and enjoy it. Enjoy the smells and things like that. This is a really, really nice one. In terms of the mouthfeel here, it's mid-bodied, I would say. It does have a little bit of a syrupy and oily mouthfeel to it, and I quite like that. It's got some moderate carbonation, and you are picking up just a little bit of the alcohol warmth here. And it's very drinkable for its strength, actually. It does have just a little hint of smoothness. But yeah, beautiful beer, this one. I highly recommend that you give this a try if you get the chance. I'm not quite sure how available this one is at the moment. I got this a good few weeks ago and kept it to do as my Christmas Eve beer review. But it certainly doesn't disappoint. This is another top class one that Mikkeller have put out, I have to say. In terms, overall though, this one is quite interesting. As I say, it's interesting to see a change from the heavy Christmas seasonal beers. A lot of breweries will do a Scotch ale or a Rauch beer, or, you know, something like that, a very, very dark beer for their Christmas one. So it's interesting to see a craft brewery do a beer that's a lot more, a beer that you would a lot more associate with the summer, and just add that nice little sort of ginger thing to it. It's a typical American style pale ale, this one. It has that nice sort of grapefruity aroma to it with the kind of the pine needles coming in, and you've got the nice caramel malts coming in that have that just that little hint of ginger, and that gives it the sort of Christmassy quirk, if you like. But the malty character is really interesting, this one, like I say, just because of the ginger infusion that you have in there. But overall, I think this is a beautiful beer. This is one of the best Mikkeller ones I've had, actually, I would say. The 20 was a really good one, and this one certainly doesn't disappoint either. So I highly recommend you give this one a try if you have the chance to. I've really, really enjoyed this one, and I hope you found this beer review informative. I'm going to go away and enjoy the rest of this one now and watch Die Hard or something like that. Happy Christmas Eve to the rest of you, but please let me know in the comments section your own thoughts on this beer if you've tried it. Always interesting to hear that, as I say. Please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Christmas period, and I'll be back tomorrow with the Brewdog, one of the other Brewdog Christmas seasonals that I haven't done yet. So I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. Have a Merry Christmas, and I'll catch you with another beer review. Cheers.